2011 proved to be a devastating year for natural disasters in the Asia-Pacific region. In March, Japan was struck by an 8.9 magnitude earthquake, which was followed by a tsunami, with waves reaching 30 feet high. Thailand suffered through the worst flooding in half a century between July and December. Officials estimate nearly 800 people died and 12 million were affected. Tropical storm Washi struck the Philippines in December, triggering disastrous flash flooding. A massive relief operation evacuated more than 100,000 people, and damage was estimated at $48 million. With many different organizations and militaries all responding with support and aid, it is crucial to have good communications.
Communications in a disaster relief operation can be every bit as important as the food and the water.
In humanitarian assistance and disaster relief operations, there must be communication interoperability among the various relief efforts. Pacific Endeavor was created with this in mind. This annual workshop, organized under the Multinational Communications Interoperability Program, or MCIP, is designed to ensure countries in the Asia-Pacific region can communicate during these HADR operations. MCIP promotes and is committed to the spirit of collaboration among the military, international humanitarian community, and telecom industry to promote the use of communications technology as an essential service to facilitate humanitarian relief.
Their whole focus is on communications during disaster for humanitarian aid and disaster response. I think it's one of the best programs that I've seen come out in the past 2 years.
Our goal is very simple. We want a capacity build. We want to have provide tool sets, process and procedures that the countries can use in disaster response. We're hoping by doing planning and process development here in a training environment, when it actually comes time to respond to a disaster, those process and procedures have already been worked through, and it's in turn saves lives.
MCIP exists because we cannot solve the problem of multinational mobility in a vacuum. No one nation can go at it alone. No one nation can have all the answers. In order to solve the problem of multinational ability, we need to bring all of the nations together, different constituencies, different organizations together to try to come up with the best solution. What MCIP does is exactly that. We bring the different organizations and folks that need to respond to a crisis together into one exercise and have them working together, come up with ideas on how to solve the huge problem of communications interoperability during disasters.
It's very important to keep not only holding these exercises, but expanding the scope. What we are able to do is ensure that each of the countries can communicate in a variety of formats through radio, telephone, and internet to each other, and also to share information in the event of a humanitarian or disaster response.
This year, the exercise was held at the Changi C2 Center in Singapore. It was broken into 4 sub-workshops: Cyber Endeavor, Phoenix Endeavor, Knowledge Endeavor, and Satcom Endeavor. Cyber Endeavor concentrated on information assurance, computer network defense processes, and procedure development, which could be used in HADR events.
This year, we've expanded it to a 2-week training session, including looking at the various aspects of cybersecurity and then hands-on testing so that the people in the classroom can actually see an attack coming into a computer and then go in and repel that attack or do some other things to fix the situation.
There's more threats during the humanitarian assistance and disaster reliefs because we're definitely more vulnerable. Everybody's trying to help and do the right thing. At the same time, people are not focused on protecting themselves.
Phoenix Endeavor is focused on spectrum management.
Each nation controls their spectrum. So for anyone to be able to operate with another country, you have to understand how to request the right frequencies and deconflict them so that you're not having unintended negative consequences. You don't want someone turning on a radio and opening up everybody's garage door.
Knowledge Endeavor is all about taking lessons learned and converting them into lessons recalled when lives are on the line.
So the Knowledge Endeavor piece focuses not only on the network and the people, but also the processes and tools to take information from the lowest level and bring it to a decision maker's level very quickly.
One of the things that we're working on at Carnegie Mellon are just-in-time training tools where people can reach back and get refresher training or, if necessary, brand new training on procedures, techniques, tools, systems that may not be familiar to them.
SATCOM Endeavor is a one-week workshop that includes a 2-day certification course followed by hands-on training, setting up and operating small satellite dishes.
We're actually addressing areas like we know that some types of satellite communications have limitations in crisis situations. And then what we need to do is we need to come up with an architecture for HI disaster recovery and build that architecture. Where should we have prioritized communication? Where could we use type of BGAN satellite types? And when we have that architecture, we can really address it better in a live situation.
A key component of PE12 is the technical assessments, which focus on interoperability among the many different systems the various countries bring into an HADR operation.
A lot of countries are moving very quickly to voice over IP, newer technology that's light and easy to deploy. But to be able to rapidly expand, you need to know how to take those newer systems and integrate them into older legacy systems.
Technology keep on changing and various nations keep on buying new equipment. So some nations lag behind, some nations have got old equipment, you know. So with this coming this place every year, so we need to test the equipment so that when the crunch comes, we can use the equipment so that it is interoperable.
Ensuring the equipment works is not the only focus during this exercise. Relationship building has proven to be just as important.
When people from all these different walks come together, they have had experience on the ground. When they share their ideas of their issues and challenges they face, and when they also share the ideas of how to solve these problems, we find a discourse, a conversation that is very meaningful, very real, and the solutions that come up from it are very concrete. I think these are the key things that have come out from this year's exercise.
Relationship building is one of the most important elements of it. If, for instance, during a disaster, I can pick up the phone and call the spectrum manager and the nation affected and ask him to help me clear some frequencies. Once he hears my voice on the phone, it makes life a lot easier.
It's very important to make relationship. I must help my friends, my neighbors, my friendly countries once they are in a problem or in a disaster, so that he can also stand beside me when I am in need.
Not only relationships among various militaries, but also with the non-governmental organizations as well.
When we first started this, there wasn't a lot of the military, including myself, who had worked with NGOs and our non-government agencies. Primarily, we always had our military role. They're very willing to come in and sit down and discuss common issues that we all have. And what's amazing is a lot of the same issues military has, they have the same ones, especially with communications.
You know, anytime we deal with a military operation anywhere in the world, there'll be non-governmental organizations involved, and there'll be humanitarian assistance, whether you're cleaning up after a natural disaster or trying to deal with the security and stability problem. So it's important for us in the militaries of the region to work early and often, if you will, with all of our non-governmental partners, all the humanitarian assistance organizations, and help break down some of the cultural barriers between us, learn to interoperate with them, learn to see what they can bring to the table, and where we may need to help them.
Once the equipment was tested and using these relationships, the participants took part in a tabletop exercise.
According to the scenario, a storm is hitting the fictitious island, and so our participants are going through and looking at the damage. Using the resources we've developed throughout our program in the past 6 or 7 years, they're taking that information and building a response plan based on a disaster.
being able to build the relationships that are necessary to communicate with each other, because a lot of times the trust factor is not there, but these TTXs give us the opportunity to meet and to discuss things with each other, and we actually become friends. So you know who to call, you know who to talk to in case of emergencies. And to me, that camaraderie building is probably one of the biggest pieces to this whole TTX.
Oftentimes, immediately following a disaster, the main lines of communication are down. Things like mobile phone networks are overwhelmed or destroyed.
This is Pacific Endeavor.
For the first time at Pacific Endeavor, operators established communication between the military and amateur radios in Nepal.
Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal, is very vulnerable to disaster. Like, we're expecting another earthquake about 8 Richter scale. If it's hit Kathmandu, so there will be mass casualties. We established a link between Singapore and Kathmandu. So at the time of disaster, maybe that may be the only means we can communicate with the outside world.
Oftentimes, when a disaster first hits, the only thing you have is what's existing in that location. And many times, the only thing there is an amateur radio operator. We were able to demonstrate how military also can get involved and link into that amateur radio network.
Conducting many different forums during this one exercise helps keep costs down and maximizes return on investment.
In these austere times, we have to come up with ways to get bang for the buck. That's what the MCIP does. It brings many different organizations together under one umbrella. MCIP manages to provide great service at a relatively low cost that hopefully in the future will pay off great dividends by saving lives during disasters.
With an ever-increasing demand for humanitarian aid across the Pacific region, the need for an exercise of this nature is higher than ever.
We keep doing this because disaster keeps happening. No matter how hard you prepare, the disaster is going to come. Families are going to be affected by it. The better we refine our communications, the better we can refine our support and response to those disasters, and that's really the key.
The more people that have the same focus, and if we can communicate better so things can happen faster, we save time and we save lives faster. And that's the goal of this.